Welcome to First Things First. That was the look of, there you go, of realizing a second before the show started that I didn't have a pen. That's the Hall of Famer, Chris Carter. Thank you very much for the pen. This is Nick Wright. We made it to Friday. We started the week down in D.C. at the All-Star Game. We ended right here in New York with a lot of basketball to talk about. Big show today. We are going to touch on the number one reason Boogie decided to go to the Warriors. We are going to discuss whether Julio Jones will be a no-show at Falcons training camp. We'll tell you why. And we'll talk about if the turmoil between Brady and Belichick still exists, and if it does, if it's going to boil over.
Yeah, the reason why Jimmy G left New England.
Oh, it didn't take long. Did not take long. We got it right in there. All right, but we are going to start with basketball. Out west, with a rivalry in the making, when LeBron went to L.A., there was no question the Warriors would be his biggest challenge. They also happened to be his biggest challenge while he was in Cleveland, but, you know, proximity. Golden State added another all-star piece in Boogie Cousins. The Lakers added 0 more all-star pieces in the Kawhi loss. So needless to say, it's not going to be easy for the Los Angeles Lakers. But that does not scare Magic Johnson. Take a listen.
Well, I think that, you know, we will look forward to that challenge, right? Everybody expects Golden State to win again. But I would love to have the challenge and to play them in the Western Conference Finals,
right,
if we could get to that position. So I'm a competitor, so I'm not scared of Golden State. I'm not worried about Golden State. They don't keep me up at night. I know that we have a really solid team, and a good team, and a competitive team, and a tough-minded team. And we got guys now who are winners.
All right, so let's break that down a bit. You have the Lakers and you have the Golden State Warriors. How big, CC, is the gap between these two teams?
Well, this is the thing, and I can't do it because I have to give the Warriors credit for, like, who they are. Not just as an organization, because when the ownership took over, it was not the organization that we consider the Golden State Warriors today. Like, they have spent a lot of money. They've made a lot of good decisions. They made some tough decisions. Mark Jackson, to bring him back, to bring Steve Kerr, chance him out, first time being a coach. What about the overall development of all those players? Forget about before when they got KD, but Steph. There was a point in Steph's career where, man, people were wondering, what kind of NBA player is he going to be?
And just the choosing the players in the draft.
Yes.
Like Oklahoma City, when they had KD, Russ, and Harden, got a ton of credit for drafting those guys. And those were great picks. But those guys were all top 5 picks. Steph was taken after a couple point guards. Clay was taken outside of the top 8. Draymond, a second-round pick. Like that, the organically grown Warriors, it's the development and saying, we want these guys. How about not trading Clay for Kevin Love?
Yes.
Back when that was at the time, people were like, how could you not trade him for Kevin Love? Jerry West actually stepped in and said, you're not trading him for Kevin Love. That's stuff they deserve a ton of credit for.
Yeah, so when you start breaking down, like, how close are these teams, Houston is a little bit different. They got some accomplished players. They got some players, even their coach, that have gotten really close. So when you try to compare Houston and Golden State, it's a different comparison. But where the Lakers are, absent of LeBron, they don't have a proven coach. All their young players, I can't just give them credit for player development. I can't give, man, Steph was not the shooter 5 years ago he is today. He's so much better. Why? Because of the work, because of even having setbacks, even the overall perseverance. His first couple finals, not spectacular. So I can't move the Lakers in the same class as Golden State because it takes too much hard work. They've made too many good decisions. They have too many, I'm talking about once every generation type players. I don't know what Ingram's going to be. Lonzo Ball, what kind of player is he going to be? Can LeBron, in this growing stage with these young players, what is LeBron going to do? You know, is he going to play more in the post? Is he going to handle the ball? So, no, man, Golden State is in a class by themselves. Now, I do believe that the Lakers are 1 or 2 players away from being in the conversation. But if they were to be one of the Final 4 teams in the West, to me, that's not a bad season.
Listen, if they had added Kawhi this week instead of him going to the Raptors, then we can start to have this conversation.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So here is the hierarchy in the West. Golden State is up here. I think Golden State got better this offseason. I think the Rockets, due to age and atrophy, got a little bit worse. So the Rockets are right here. And then there's 5 teams right there. Okay, so who are the Lakers competing with? The Spurs, who got better in an odd way compared to the Spurs from last year because they're adding DeRozan in a spot where they didn't have Kawhi Leonard last year. Oklahoma City, we know where they were. I think they will still be right around that same place, and I think the addition of Dennis Schroeder is good for them. How about Utah? You know how I feel about young players, and even if you don't add a guy that we expect the great young players to get better, Utah, and then there's Portland still lurking. That's not even to mention Minnesota, Denver, teams that I think will be a tick below. So the question is, to me, will the Lakers be at the top of that group of 5 as the 3 seed? Or will they be closer to the bottom of that group of 5 as the 6 or 7 seed? Like, that's the question I have right now. Not about the Lakers versus Golden State. They do not have the personnel.
But is it possible to, if you squinted just a little, say maybe the Lakers are a Warriors injury away or an Ingram having a monster year away? I mean, you talked about all the potential that the Warriors had when we didn't know what Steph was going to become and we weren't sure if we agreed with the Clay trade. But all of a sudden, you have a ton of young potential on this team who are a season or 2 away from having, like, breakout seasons and turning into a shell or perhaps who they really are, plus LeBron at the helm with all that. And now you're a year away from maybe getting a landing a big free agent. I mean, realistically, how far away are they?
We can squint, and it's hard to see one of the Lakers being as good as Klay Thompson individually. I can squint, and I got hellacious vision. It's hard for me to see anyone being a better pro than Steph. I haven't even got to KD yet. And I can squint. I believe that Walton as a coach is going to work out. But to think he's going to be as good as Steve Kerr has been, that's just really, really hard. So the task is, it's a monumental task of the things that they would have to achieve. They could have spectacular second seasons and still not be where Golden State is at this point.
And the guy that people will point to on the Lakers, other than LeBron, obviously, that could be the star, the second star is Brandon Ingram. And I just want to caution that a touch. We were in the office this morning, actually, because one of our producers, Deontay, yesterday was tweeting about Carmelo Anthony should have won Rookie of the Year over LeBron his rookie year. So I actually looked into Carmelo and LeBron's rookie seasons, and CC, your stepson, Austin, was doing the same thing. Carmelo Anthony as a rookie averaged 21 points a game. 21 points a game. Why am I bringing that up? Because he turned into a professional scorer from the moment he got there. Brandon Ingram as a rookie averaged 8. In his second year, he averaged 16. Typically, the guys that have that trajectory aren't going to be superstar caliber players. Now, they might make an all-star game one day.
Yes.
But unless you come into... Kevin Durant came into the league as a 20-point-a-game guy.
Yes, there are very few Kawhi Leonards.
Right, and there's very few Giannis's. Like, Giannis, you understood why it took him a long time. He was coming from a different country.
Yeah, he hadn't been exposed to basketball at this level, yes.
Brandon Ingram went to Duke, like he's from here. He came in, and so we're going to see progression. But the superstar leap, if it happens, it's going to take a Kawhi progression, a slow but steady build. What the Lakers are, and I mentioned it last week, CeCe mentioned it this week, and now the Lakers are talking about themselves. Could they present a small ball lineup to combat Golden State? Like right now, it would be Lonzo, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, LeBron. Until you flip out one of those guys for a Kawhi, what it is, it's, to use a Spades term, I got 1 in 4 possibles. I got LeBron that I know can do that, and Lonzo probably can. But like Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram is your small ball 3, Kyle Kuzma, okay, maybe eventually at some point. But in 2018-19, when the Warriors are a well-oiled machine who just added an additional engine, that's not who the Lakers are competing with. Lakers got to worry about being better than Portland. They got to worry about being better than Utah. Like, if they can steal a game from Golden State, if they're lucky enough to play them in the playoffs, all right, we'll get there when we get there. But that's not, I think, the realistic discussion right now.
The death lineup?
The death lineup, eventually they're going to get to that. Eventually they're going to get to that, but you need another superstar. You need another guy that can command a double team. You need another guy that can get you a bucket in the fourth quarter. Because the way the NBA is situated now, we can have a lot of conversations about the regular season, I know it is still somewhat important, but to me, when you break down these comparisons, it's about what's going to happen in the postseason. What would the Lakers look like? And the person I've tried to avoid talking about is Lakers, as good as they want to be, they still don't have an answer for Kevin Durant.
Right, and that's why if you want to talk about a death lineup with them or their version of it, if you flip out in that lineup I just said, Kyle Kuzma for Kawhi Leonard, and then all of a sudden, LeBron's your 5.
Yes.
LeBron will eat Draymond's lunch. Kawhi can check Kevin Durant, and then you're talking about Ingram in year 3, because we're talking about a year from now. Or Ingram in year 4, pardon me. Lonzo in year 3. Like, okay, now we can start to actually say, like you said, you might not even have to squint. Yeah. And you can say, we can figure this out.
Yeah. Right now, Golden State are grown men.
Sure.
And the Lakers are kids.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Youngest team LeBron's played on since his rookie year.
Yeah. Nick will call you when they grow up.
Okay. Chris Mannix is going to stop by a little later. We'll discuss this further. Coming up, though, a little football. James Harrison with some harsh words for Mike Tomlin. Hear about that next. First things first. Back here on First Things First, we're going viral. Check this out. Viral sensation and incoming Georgetown freshman Matt McClung showing off his game at a DC Pro-Am League.
That guy's going to be fun to watch in college.
Yeah.
Going to be fun to watch for a number of years at Georgetown.
Yeah. Bring some eyes back to the Hoyas.
There you go.
Man, that would be the first time, too. People who watch basketball, they know. First time Georgetown had someone look like
that.
Be a star. Plenty of students look like that.
Yeah.
Not on the basketball team.
No.
Yesterday, linebacker James Harrison was a guest on Undisputed, also on The Herd, and he had some harsh words for Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. He said that Bill Belichick was a much better coach and that Tomlin needs, quote, more discipline. Tough words from a tough guy. Cece, what's your reaction to James Harrison's comments on Tomlin needing more discipline?
I've been in and around the NFL since 1987. Long time. Bill Belichick, Bill Walsh, Bill Parcells. Those are the best coaches that I've seen, heard about, or were coached by, had an influence on the game. So when you make a comparison to Bill Belichick, now you might have an historian, they might go back to Vince Lombardi, they might take Chuck Noll, they might take Tom Landry, but Bill Belichick's resume and his coaching ability to coach players and get a player that is not a great player to be a high achiever is comparable to anyone. So I can make an argument against anyone who wanted to defend whoever their specific coach was, that he's not as good as Bill Belichick. And my trump card would be, well, okay, who is better at coaching average or bad players? And right there in that category, Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, they're in a separate class of being able to get the best juice from the grape. That being a free agent, that being a guy from Canada, they have shown through the years that's what they do.
That being a 6th round, 199th overall pick who turns into the most accomplished quarterback ever.
Right. So I don't have a problem with James. I thought Bill Belichick was a better coach than Tomlin. So, no, that doesn't surprise me. Now, when you start breaking down the specifics of it, and James Harris, the reason why he can speak to this is because he spent some time on the other side. And I don't think that James Harris is doing this out of spite, out of ill will towards Pittsburgh because they didn't treat him. James Harris has been a guy that throughout his career, he has told you, regardless if you wanted to hear it, that being comments about the commissioner, that being comments about the way the game is called, the way the game is refereed, the suspensions that were involved in the game, the power that they had at the commissioner's office, he has always told you exactly how he felt. Now, I don't know why people would take it personal to think that, wow, Mike Tomlin, compared to Bill Belichick, needs more discipline. Yeah, you can see how the team is run. You could see their sideline demeanor. You could see by the way the players take the field. You can hear by the comments that come out of the locker room. So, yes, I agree with James Harrison. James Harrison is right about this. This is not a debate.
Oh, well, so listen, I'm glad you said what you said at the front end, because there are certain guys in sports that if you compare anyone to that guy, they're going to fall short. Like, Bill Belichick is, without question, the best coach in the NFL today. And as CC laid out, you can make an argument of him versus any coach in NFL history. Like, we don't need to do it, but you wouldn't necessarily lose that argument, right? You can make the argument, if such a thing exists, he's the best coach ever. So everyone's going to fall short. And I understand why James Harrison would be comparing these two. I know he played briefly in Cincinnati, but you associate him as a Steeler, and then he played with the Patriots at the end of last season. So those are the two coaches. But I don't think Mike Tomlin's a perfect coach. But I do not understand why there seems to be more nonsense surrounding the evaluation of Mike Tomlin than any other coach that has accomplished anything like he has in this league. Like, we don't do this to Sean Payton. We don't do this to Mike McCarthy. Why do I bring those two guys up?
Well, I think that Sean Payton's a little bit different because Sean Payton went through a lot. When they had the suspension and his role he played in the suspension, Sean Payton got criticized an awful lot for not only his on-the-field demeanor, but the things that he knew about that he acted as if he didn't know about.
Sean, you're absolutely right that when Sean Payton has had to deal with this type of noise or bigger noise, it was because, fairly or unfairly, he'd been kicked out of the league for a year. Like, there was a massive scandal associated with him and his football team. But, like, Mike Tomlin's resume, and I picked those two quarterbacks, or those two coaches, by the way, because they also have Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I'm not trying to compare Tomlin to it because he has had Big Ben his whole time. So you got to bake that into it. But his resume compares favorably to every coach in football except for Belichick. Look at him compared to Sean Payton. We can show you, like, they've coached basically the same number of years. Tom's got a slightly better winning percentage. Their playoff appearances, playoff wins, almost identical. What Tomlin's never had is a bad season. Never been below 8-8. What about Mike McCarthy, who's gotten to have Aaron Rodgers his entire career like Tomlin's had Big Ben? Okay, so, again, better winning percentage, slightly worse playoff resume, except Tomlin's been to 2 Super Bowls and had 0 losing seasons. Like, I don't know why he's the guy we seize on when it comes to coaches that could be better.
We've spoken so much about the Steelers and all the little issues they have and all the, like, you know, the in-family drama and all of it. But the truth is, shouldn't we just take a step back and say, why fix what ain't broken? Yeah, maybe he coaches a little unconventionally. Maybe there is a lack of discipline, if you will. But it somehow works for the Steelers team, who are always there in the end, who always seem to be in the playoff race in some capacity. So I feel like going into this season, it's once again, you know, there's some issue with his disciplinary tactics.
That might be the people picking the players. Because Pittsburgh has always had good players. So they've always had a good front office. They've always had stability in the front office. And sometimes you have to look at organizations and you make a comparison with Sean Payton compared to Mike Tomlin. Look at the organization. When Sean Payton took over the organization, where was the organization? All right? They had never won a Super Bowl.
Correct.
All right? So where he took them to, you can't put that on paper. You don't have no graph or anything for that.
No, the Saints were a sad sack organization.
Okay, and also, if you look at the Saints' lack of having a good defense, now you can blame it on the head coach, but his inability to have a great defensive coordinator, they were one of the worst defenses for a period of time. That's what stopped his winning percentage, even though he did have a Hall of Fame quarterback. So a lot of times, it's the stability of the franchise. All right? Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 40 years had 3 coaches. All of them have won. Mike Tomlin, you can't say that he was better or worse than who he preceded
Bill Cowher.
in Bill Cowher, because Bill Cowher got criticized an awful lot. I think it's the Pittsburgh job compared to Mike Tomlin being black, or as people looking at it, it's the job in Pittsburgh. That job gets criticized. Bill Cowher got criticized an awful lot. Man, it's a good team. Why can't they get over the hump? Why don't they have playoff success? But when you start talking about the playoffs, all right, it starts getting down to the small little things. It starts about preparation. So it's beyond your talent. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, why would you change what's working? To me, what they have is not working. They've underachieved. They should have achieved more with the collection of players that they have. So I don't believe that it is working.
So, listen, your point about the Saints is a totally fair one, but all the things you're giving the Steelers credit for, The Packers, who are the other team I mentioned on that list, great organization, history of winning, stability at the quarterback position, stability at the head coach for the most part, like even prior to Mike McCarthy with Mike Holmgren there. Like, all those things apply there.
Yeah, I believe Mike McCarthy has gotten substantial amount of criticism, and they have had an injury run since he has been there that's been horrific. I mean, they have some really bad injuries at the most untimely time.
And the other thing is, I don't think they've done the greatest job in the offseason because they hadn't participated in free agency. I understand that.
Yeah, that's their philosophy. Pittsburgh has the same philosophy, but they've done better.
They've done better, and they've drafted better, and they've retained their own guys. The point that I just think there is more noise surrounding Tomlin than his performance would warrant. And I also think the part of why haven't they had more success than, again, been to 2 Super Bowls, won the one. Well, the guy we're talking about, in Bill Belichick, and the team we're talking about and comparing them to, they got to go through them. The only way you can make the Super Bowl out of the AFC, typically...
Yeah, somebody show me a graph of the head-to-head, because that would be a tall tale sign.
No, absolutely. But the point is, Belichick is better, and the Patriots are better. But you have to go through them in order to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. They don't have down years. They make playoffs, double-digit wins every year. The 1 year Brady's hurt, they still win 11 games.
So my argument would be, if you know you got to go through New England, why haven't you put a team on the field that would match up better against them? Because they cannot figure out what New England is doing. And their defense against New England is atrocious.
Didn't you think the team last year matched up really well against New England? We saw them play.
I don't trust that team, Nick. I keep trying to tell you, they're not a disciplined team. They had a tremendous problem in the locker room as far as the national anthem. They had decided as a team, this is pretty simple. We're going to stay in the locker room.
But you put that on the coach? Honestly.
This organization, I do put on the coach. Yep, if you're going to give them credit, let's give them the blame, because the coach can stop a lot of that chaos. Coach being on the field. What about that Baltimore game on the return?
Listen, that was bad.
What's the coach doing on the field?
No doubt, that was bad. That was also 5 years ago. On the anthem thing, I mean, listen, like I said, he's not perfect.
How many years ago did they win the Super Bowl?
They won the Super Bowl 9 years ago. No, agreed. But similar with the Packers and the Saints, by the way. But on the anthem thing, would you also agree, though, the Steelers, the only team that had on the active roster a guy that's a veteran, that was a different situation for them.
You should have took that in consideration. Sure. Like, he should have been the only guy able to come out there compared to your leader, Ben Roethlisberger, tried to steal his shine.
Right.
The other guy had a reason to be out there.
Agreed. So that's the point I was going to make is, like...
Leadership is about how much control am I going to give the other people. And Mike Tomlin has given the guys in the locker room, the most talented players, a lot of control.
Too much?
Well, it hasn't worked. So that's when it's too much, when it does not work. When you don't produce championships, that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are about. They're not about being a good team. So we're getting ready to change their philosophy. Oh, now they're pretty good. No, that has never been their philosophy. They're about winning Super Bowls. That's why they call themselves the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, let's take a break there. Coming up, can Boogie Cousins fit in with the Warriors' winning culture? That's next on First Things First. Tonight, Big Three basketball is live from Miami. Catch it all on FS1 at 8 Eastern or stream it on the Fox Sports app. It's getting so good, so fun to watch. Time now for some stories to start your morning.
You can gamble on the Big Three, too. Learned that yesterday.
Yesterday, Carmelo Anthony was finally traded. His destination, the Hawks, for a hot minute. Then he'll be waived, but will still receive all of his money from Atlanta, in case you were worried about
tragic situation.
Melo's money. It is, right, see?
Life changer.
Melo is expected to join the Houston Rockets. Nick Wright, would signing Melo be a good move for Houston?
Absolutely. There's no risk involved because he's getting his $28 million anyway. He'll sign, I would imagine, for the veterans minimum, so he's going to get actually a slight raise this year as part of being bought out because he'll get $2 million on top of that. Listen, they have a void at power forward. I had said, but when we initially heard of Melo to Houston, that I thought his best role would be coming off the bench. But with Ariza moving on, you actually can slide him in as your starting power forward. And so, yes, I think it'd be a good addition from Houston, assuming Melo understands his role there.
Yeah, that's a key right there. Does Melo understand his role? Because less than 9 months ago, I think someone asked him about, do you want to play power forward? And he was like, no, I don't want to play power forward in OKC. Now he's in Houston, still in the West. They're getting ready to make him play power forward. Also, the reason why I didn't think he was going to go to the Heat was because Pat Riley got that 10% body fat thing. No one on the team got body fat over 10%, Jenna. You'd love playing for the Heat.
I would love to play for Miami.
That's why you end up in Houston with that fried food.
On to the NFL. He's thrown onto the bus any chance he gets.
No problem.
According to Adam Schefter, the Atlanta Falcons will not be giving all-everything wide receiver Julio Jones a contract extension. The five-time Pro Bowler still has 3 years remaining on his 5-year deal. Over the last 5 seasons, the only player with more receiving yards than Julio, AB, Antonio Brown. CC, are the Falcons making a mistake by not giving Julio Jones a new deal?
Well, it's hard with 3 years left. I mean, you can be a great player, but you got 3 years left on your contract. Now, tell me the contract was a 10-year, but I think it was a 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, so he just 2 years ago, did Julio make a mistake? Did Julio miss the market as far as, hey, man, the market's going to be a lot higher. Maybe I shouldn't sign this 5-year deal.
Or did Julio see what happened to Brandon Cooks?
Brandon Cooks and a bunch of, this the quarterbacks that got Julio. It's not the wide receivers. Like, he knew someone was going to come to. No, I don't believe they're making a mistake. But because 3 years left on your contract, it's hard to set that type of precedent.
Julio, who just retired yesterday? Darrelle Revis? We talked about how Darrelle Revis exerted maximum leverage at all points in time. Did not he signed a contract one time the year before? So actually, I want more money. Julio has, to me, that type of power, that type of ability to have that type of power in Atlanta. I think he should exert maximum leverage here. His guaranteed money is up in that contract. If I'm Julio, I don't think I'm showing up that first day of training camp.
All right.
Don't listen to Nick Wright.
Okay.
Don't listen to him.
Former Alabama offensive coordinator and current Florida Atlantic head coach Lane Kiffin had some interesting comments about Alabama's quarterback situation. Saying that Nick Saban will play both of his quarterbacks in the opener, so neither will leave town. See, what do you make of Lane's interesting comments?
So Lane's saying Nick Saban's going to do a little show.
Who are they playing in the opener?
I apologize that I do not know. I assume it's a terrible football team. Or a small, very small football team. I apologize that I don't know the
No, that's okay. It's okay.
But what he's saying is he's going to play them both to make them think they'll both get to play so he can keep them both. That's what Lane Kiffin's alleging here.
Oh, Lane knows. Lane's been in the cookie shop making cookies, sizing them up. This one, we need a little more shape on this one. This one needs a little more dough. This one needs some more chips in it. He knows exactly how college football is done. And this is how you get kids confused. You keep playing them. You keep platooning the quarterback. And in a big game you're not going to put Jalen Hurts in there. Jalen should leave this summer. That would be the smart move because Nick Saban is going to try to keep as many blue chippers on that roster as he can.
And by the way, I forgot, Alabama picks its cupcake game for the week before Auburn. They play Louisville week 1, so that's a real football
in one of
team.
those kickoff classics.
Absolutely. My apologies.
They're going to kick Louisville in the...
Okay. It'll be a classic. We learned our lesson on that earlier this week.
Well, maybe.
3 out of 4 letters, and you're good. Finally, the British Open got underway yesterday. Tiger Woods, in his first Open since 2015, finished even par after round 1, leaving him 5 shots behind the leader. Tiger teed off early this morning. He's even through 6 holes already today, 5 strokes off the lead. See, what do you make of Tiger's start so far?
Oh, he had a solid start. But we're in a day and age in golf that there's so many quality players in the top 100, and there's so many guys that on a given day, they can make 5, 6, 7 birdies. Now, they might have a couple bogeys in there. To me, Tiger Woods, one of the biggest differences that I see in his return is you don't see the birdie barrage like he used to be. Like 2 or 3 times during a round, 3 out of 4 holes, he would make birdie. And he typically didn't make a lot of big numbers, double bogeys. Yesterday, didn't make any double bogeys, but couldn't make the 6 birdies. When he got the 2 under, I told Nick that, man, I wish he could have made 6, 8 pars in a row to be able to stay under par. It's hard in these big tournaments to stay around even par. There's going to be a number around probably 8 under that's going to be leading today. If Tiger doesn't get 3 or 4 under, it's just too much space, too many golfers to go through, too many birdies you have to make without making a mistake.
Yesterday, there was a missed opportunity in those first 6 holes. First 6 holes, he is 2 under. But on the 3rd hole, he putted from the collection area. I couldn't believe he was attempting this, and it was perfect, and it wasn't an inch away from the hole. It was a quarter rotation away. I thought it might drop while he was walking up to tap it in. That would have been a birdie. And then on the 6th hole, after a great drive, he has a bad approach shot, but still, despite that, he has a putt for birdie on the par 5 6th that, once again, this one was maybe one full rotation away. He could have been 4 under through 6. And why did it matter? Because you knew he wasn't going to play a totally clean round. You knew some bogeys were going to come. Yes. He had to give himself a bigger margin. So yesterday's round, when he doesn't birdie a single par 5, he gets off to the good start. Yesterday's round should have been a worst-case 2 under. Instead of up being even. And now it's to C's point. Today, he starts par, bogey, bogey. Now he follows that up with birdie, birdie. But now you're still just back to even. And so, the number of people is a key point. Because it's not just, okay, I've got to go post a number and maybe the leader falls back.
Right.
Somebody in that somewhere between you and the leader is going to go out and post a 65. And now he jumps ahead. And so, listen, it's tough. We're not seeing what I guess I had maybe erroneously hoped we would see, which is at least a few of those birdie barrages. Like we've seen it once in the comeback.
But in the things that impressed me the most, and it's not on the course, and if you heard afterwards, Tiger talked about how he admitted, he's like, you know what? I think I was a couple shots away. I could have led after the first round. Like, I think I could have played well. It's just the side of because I covered Tiger for so many years where he gave you nothing, where he was so buttoned up about every single detail of his game.
I'd rather he go back to being a jerk if it would help him win. I know it wouldn't, but I don't really care.
There's no correlation clearly between what he says and how he's playing, but it's just nice that he's at least being very open and giving people a look into what he's struggling with and what he's going to. You don't like it.
I know what I'm here
It's good
for.
insight. He has changed.
Any threat he misses the cut?
I'm going to tell you, it's raining there. The course is totally different than it was yesterday. The course is playing a lot longer. Ball's not rolling out the way it was. You can get in some bad spots, catch some double bogeys, triple bogeys. So right now, he's not onto the back 9 yet. There's still a chance, he could miss the cut.
And the final 4 holes of, at least yesterday, the final 4 holes were a brutal finish for everybody. Like the first, when I saw the coverage, it was the day wasn't over yet. But holes 1 through 14, the field was 120 over collectively. Right. Holes 15 through 18, those 4 holes, the field was 140 over collectively. So those last 4 holes.
One thing to Tiger's advantage, though, Tiger does like the inclement weather. He thinks that less golfers have the mentality to be able to win when it's bad, especially when he's behind. When he's behind, he always prays for bad weather because he feels like he can play spectacular golf either if it's nice or if it's bad.
I like that. All right, moving on to basketball, the Golden State Warriors. Boogie Cousins was introduced as a member of his new team yesterday. Less fanfare, more verbal hardware. Cousins recently referred to joining the back-to-back champs as, quote, his nuclear option and his ace of spades. But Warriors general manager Bob Myers had a different explanation on why he joined Golden State.
He's kind of now at the point, I think, in his life and his career where he's seen the difficult side of playing basketball professionally in some ways. Although he's made a lot of money and done a lot of things, he wants to win. And that's why he's here. We want to win, too. That's the focus.
All right, Nick, let's talk about the way Boogie's going to fit into this Warriors team. What is a realistic role for him on this team?
Oh, I mean, I think a realistic role is, at the very least, in the stretches where KD and Steph are both off the court, you can play him and Clay in a 2-man game where you still have 2 dominant offensive players and the offense can run through Boogie. I think he will get 10 minutes a game where the offense runs through him. Now, that'll be different than what he's used to, which is he's used to almost all the minutes he's on the court, the offense running through him, even when he was playing with Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis isn't a guy that, like, you run post-ups for necessarily. He kind of gets his scoring off other people's action. So I think he'll still get that to a degree. I also think Boogie will be a guy who, if a team tries to go small against the Warriors like Houston did in the playoffs, that if they don't want to put out their small ball lineup at that point in time. If they want to rest Iguodala's legs, if they don't want to ask Draymond to play center, you can put Boogie out there and basically force the other team out of their small ball lineup. I just think there were very few spots Golden State was vulnerable last season. The minutes Steph and Clay were off the court, the minutes the other team could out small ball your small ball. And Boogie fits in perfectly to fix those few weaknesses they had. So once he's healthy, which I think will be sooner than a lot of people think, I don't think that he'll have any problem fitting into that role as long as he knows that's the role.
Yeah, most professional teams, they want an opportunity at some point that I can be bigger, stronger, and more powerful than you. The Warriors, they don't have that. Even the death lineup, that lineup presents problems for people. But power, strength, if they can go to a post game, they will have a certain number of sets where they will go and feed the post. Also, let's not forget who Boogie Cousins is. You're talking about pick and roll, but the pick and pop. All right? He's going to have so many opportunities to pick and pop and shoot that open jump shot, which is part of his game. Also, if you go back and watch the Warriors game, especially during the regular season, they have at least 20 possessions. They're wasted. Like the first guy up the court, the first shot they get, they take it. And to me, it's part of their plan. But in real basketball, you could give that possession to anyone. So for me, there's so many possessions that they could take those out and just give those to Boogie. Just run plays for Boogie, because this is what the Warriors are going to do. They're not going to have Boogie, hey, Boogie, just go out there and fit in. No,
Right.
Boogie is not that type of player. You have to call his number. You have to throw him the ball. You have to have him involved. You have to massage his ego. So all those things have to come into play. I see him playing 20 to 28 minutes for Golden State as a starter. I'm not thinking about them times that Steph is not on the court and KD's not on the court. Boogie is going to want a significant role with this team, and it starts from being in the starting lineup. When they say when they call him out there, Boogie wants to be a part of that. So if that doesn't happen, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
So I believe they have to massage his ego more than any of the other players they've ever had.
And Kerr, by the way, has said he will start. He said no disrespect Kayvon Looney, but once Boogie's healthy, he'll start. Go ahead, Jim.
Piggybacking off what you just said, so that's how he fits into the basketball aspect of it. How does he fit into their culture on this Golden State team, the winning culture that everyone on this team, top to bottom, already knows and has adopted?
Listen, he's got to. They don't have to change anything culture-wise for him. You're mentioning offensively things they can do to make him feel welcome, to get him involved. They got to change. They will change some things there, even though he fits in well. He's a great passer as a center. He's a good three-point shooter as a center, as CeCe mentioned. But he's got to buy into that. That is the only question I have. That's the only reason I believe that anyone could say this won't be a good move, is if they think Boogie simply doesn't have it in him. I think his time in Sacramento, that was such a dysfunctional organization. He was a part of it, but he wasn't the only part of the reason it was dysfunctional. He never had, forget an all-star teammate, he never had a top 100 player in the league teammate when he was in Sacramento. And then in New Orleans, we didn't hear a ton about New Orleans saying he was a problem. He might not have been a solution, but we didn't hear people complaining about Boogie once he was in New Orleans.
But it's hard to be a great player and the team play better when you're absent. All right? It's hard to have a guy who can get 25 and 10, and the team actually got better when he was on the bench. The thing about Boogie Cousins is when you throw Boogie the ball, Boogie looks at who's on him, and Boogie's like, man, I could boogie on this dude. So that's not going to change. Why would I pass the ball when I can, hey, coach, I can score on this guy? In Golden State, inside their offense, they have complete liberty. If they want to, they can take the guy off the bounce. They can take any shot that they want. Now, are they going to extend that to Boogie? Because that's what Boogie's had every other place he's been.
But don't you think, as a center, he's a really good passer? Averaged 5.5 assists a game last year. He was doing that with worse teammates.
Yeah, but you don't get a max deal for your assist.
For sure, but don't you? I guess I believe Boogie knows. I would think he knows that the max deal isn't going to be based on his numbers this year. That everyone knows the numbers are going to be. I wouldn't,
Nick. You give a lot of credit to guys for stuff they should know. Well, if he should know, because I typically say it, people know better, they do better. Well, Boogie hasn't really taken that.
So he shouldn't have gone to Golden State if his numbers were. as big a priority.
I mean, we're just assuming that all of a sudden he's just going to be totally bought into, hey, me scoring the basketball, me not getting in double figures, like that's not going to matter. It is going to matter because he's looking for a max deal. He's not trying to win. He's trying to get a max deal. Golden State's going to win with him or without him.
I thought Boogie was, I'd be more concerned. I'm not acting like I'm not concerned at all. I'd be more concerned if I didn't think Boogie, as his teams have gotten better, his behavior has gotten better. If he was the same malcontent in New Orleans as he was in Sacramento, I would be more concerned. This is the most winning he will have done anywhere in his career. How
has he done in his press releases, statements since?
He's very stable.
Now he's on the best team that's ever created. So you said he got better as the team got better. Well, what happened in the transition?
Let him be around.
The documentary with Showtime, like he's being a jerk, like to the camera. But I don't know that means that's who he's going to be on the court or with his teammates. I'm not saying it's not, but I just don't think you can draw that conclusion. I don't think it's fair to.
Oh no, I can draw the conclusion. How Boogie has been since he was at Kentucky.
Absolutely.
Because I know the coaches.
No doubt. But
okay?
I'm saying.
And also how he's been as a pro, because I know some of the people that have worked with him.
I don't mind any of that.
Boogie has serious issues.
Agreed. The only thing, the thing that I'm saying you can't draw the conclusion from is the Showtime documentary. If you want to talk about his college and pro career, that's totally fair. I think guys put on for the camera at times. I don't really care about what a guy says in the Showtime documentary. But his track record, it's all fair game. That's why, listen, I told you that an NBA front office guy hit me up and said, I think this is terrible for the Warriors. I think it's the only mistake they could have made. They didn't need him, and coaches don't like him. He's bad in the locker room, all these things. I'm a believer in the talent.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, will tension between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady spill over onto the field? Who used to be a quarterback for the Patriots?
Hey, man, Jimmy G. Bill Belichick said, man, that Jimmy G's interesting now.
What about that?
You
Next
know?
on First
See,
Things First.
that's an example of you putting it up at the rim and Steve dunking it.
Zip.
Yeah.
Zip it.
No, say it.
Zip it. Back here at First Things First, the Patriots kick off training camp on Thursday. Gosh, Thursday already. Among the many questions reporters will be asking, how is Gronk's horse doing? And where's the state of affairs with Brady, Belichick, and Kraft? The three hoping to put the issues from last season behind them. According to reports, nothing has been hashed out, making for a very meaty training camp. CC, would issues between Belichick and Brady have any impact whatsoever on the field?
I don't think so. Belichick, when you run the type of program he runs, him and Nick Saban, there are going to always be issues. Because human beings don't live and function the way these two people do. I mean, they're so consistent in their approach, you would think that they've never won anything. And there's always going to be some type of friction when you run programs. Bill Parcells had the same thing. This is the way they run things. This is how they develop football players, and this is how they're going to run their team. And this is who knows this. It's not important that I know it, but Tom Brady knows that. Tom Brady's success is all tied to Bill Belichick. Now, of course, there's no way that Tom Brady would agree with everything he's done. But he believes in Belichick. He believes in the moves that he make for the overall good. Now, does he sign off on them? No, because Belichick don't ask him to sign off on them. You know, you think he was happy when he lost Randy Moss? No, he was not happy. You think he was happy when he lost Wes Welker? No, he wasn't happy. So there have been other times.
Even Amendola
in this relationship. Yeah, he's nothing compared to what Brady's already lost.
Of course, but I just mean even recently, up to this year.
Like I said, Amendola was nothing. I'm going to call Tom Brady. Danny Amendola, he's not going to be able to come back with the team. Let me see if Tom or Giselle, if they care. All right? Bill don't care nothing about that. You can't run a football team that way. And you can't have the type of respect or warrant the type of respect that Belichick, that he demands from you and be wishy-washy. He's very consistent. He's been consistent since he's been a coach. Now, he's made adjustments since the first time as a head coach in Cleveland to what he's doing now, but he's not going to make concessions and adjustments.
As far as the cultural aspect or the game plans, or what kind of adjustments?
He's made a lot of adjustments. He's changed his football. He doesn't always play a 34 defense now. That was his staple defense. He will play a 43 now. He will play nickel now. He'll play a goal line front with 5 DBs in the back. Like, he has adjusted. Throwing the football from an offensive standpoint. He don't mind coming out throwing the ball 50 times in one game, even if it's raining or something. So he's adjusted his overall philosophy, but how he's going to do things day to day, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and this is not why they win. It's just one of the ingredients in making the cake.
How many players do you think Belichick's been in constant contact with this offseason?
Oh, 0.
How many players do you think he has had more than 2 phone calls with this offseason that are currently on the team?
Tom Brady would probably be the only one.
And if it's more than 2, it's less than 10.
Easily.
And so the
No, it's either 1 or 2 players. He might have talked to Trump. He might have talked
I meant
to
total phone calls with Brady. I'm saying if it's more than 2 phone, like, it's not like they're talking once a week. It's not it's not how
in the
he
offseason,
operates.
they're not talking like that. During the season, the communication is a lot more extensive.
Of course. The point I'm making is whatever issues they had when the Super Bowl ended, those issues are probably going to exist when training camp opens, because there haven't been a lot of like, hey, we're all getting together at the Cape for families and barbecues. Like, it's just, as Cece mentioned, that's not how most football coaches do things, but it is certainly not how this football coach does things. And it is what I would call a symbiotic relationship that probably neither party is all in on as far as loving it. Like, Brady understands how much Belichick helps him. And Belichick, whether he admit it or not, understands how much Brady has helped him and how much Brady has helped elevate him to the discussion we've had amongst the greatest coaches of all time. But, of course, they get on each other's nerves. And, of course, Belichick doesn't, I would imagine, now I'm obviously not reporting this, like, Belichick probably doesn't love that Brady has, via his celebrity and his play, almost superseded the hierarchy that Belichick has established, that Brady has a direct line of communication with the owner, that he's an adopted son of the owner, and Brady, I'm sure, doesn't love that Belichick still treats him like he's one of the players, when he has done so much and he's the best quarterback in the league, or one of them, and maybe the best quarterback of all time. But that's who they are, and it's never affected them on the field. It's never been an issue as far as their ability to win football games.
So that's just it. Earlier in the show, we talked about squinting to see something. If you take a step back and gloss over it, that relationship has actually worked for them. I think that, sure, they would like a better relationship, maybe, but the truth is, like,
I don't think Belichick would want a better relationship. It's exactly where he wants it.
So it hasn't affected any play on the field. It is what it is. And Brady may want something different, or maybe he doesn't. Who knows? But it's working, so they're not going to go ahead now all of a sudden say, you know what, it's time that we do start vacationing on the Cape or getting together and having these one-on-one intimate chats about God knows what. This has worked. This dynamic in the relationship has worked for these two, and it's meant winning.
They were 1 or 2 plays away from winning their 6th Super Bowl. If they make 1 or 2 plays, do we still have this same question? No, and it's still the same tension in the room. This was Bill Belichick. He's going to run his program how he wants. And I don't agree with you as far as who Tom Brady is as a celebrity and all those things. I don't think those things affect Bill Belichick one bit. And the reason why was because a number of years ago, Robert Kraft made a great decision. And it wasn't of drafting Tom Brady, because he wasn't part of that decision. That was the decision when he decided to trade those draft picks for Bill Belichick, because that changed his life. Now, subsequently, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round by Bill Belichick. But let's not forget about the original draft picks, that how this thing got started. Robert Kraft believed in that man, that he would trade draft picks as a coach to get him to leave the New York Jets to join the New England Patriots. And that's the most significant thing. So as far as Brady and his communication with Kraft, it doesn't affect Belichick, because he knows that there's one hammer. Until Robert Kraft tells Bill Belichick, you don't have control of this roster, Bill Belichick's going to continue to coach, and you're going to know when things change in New England, because there's going to be a press conference and Bill Belichick's not going to be the coach.
All right, let's take a break. Leave it there. Coming up, are the Rockets making a mistake pursuing Carmelo Anthony? That's next. This is First Things First.
I do know why Jimmy G ain't in New England no more. Jimmy G said, I'm a star. Well, you know, at least I can date one.
Back here First things first, we're joined by Yahoo Sports senior writer Chris Mannix. Happy Friday.
What up,
Chris
man?
Mannix.
Good to see you, brother.
All good?
All good.
Let's talk some Melo. Carmelo Anthony is one step closer to being a member of a team where he will want more playing time. That would be the Houston Rockets. The Thunder have agreed to a 3-team trade that will send Melo to the Hawks. Melo will then be waived and become a free agent, and all signs point to him landing with Houston. Chris Mannix, would signing Melo be a good move for the Rockets?
It feels like a bit of a desperation move for the Rockets because the Rockets lost some of their core guys in the last few weeks. They lost Luke Mbah a Moute. They lost Trevor Ariza. These guys were part of their defensive identity. That's what made the Rockets a special team last year. They were a great offensive team with great offensive players, but the reason they went as deep as they did in the playoffs was because of that defensive identity. Carmelo, to me, just feels like the guy on the market, like the last guy with talent that they could potentially bring in on a short-term type of deal. So I'm fine with it. I don't think it significantly improves them. In fact, I would certainly argue that right now, even with Carmelo, the Rockets are a weaker team going into next season.
I agree they're a weaker team going into next season. I think we might look back on this Rockets run and say, you know what their window was? Right up until Chris Paul pulled his hamstring.
Yep.
That 1 year and the one season, they had home court. Yeah. Golden State was kind of in cruise control throughout the year and didn't seem to really lock in, even in Game 6 and 7 of that series where they were down double digits in both those. And I think when Chris Paul's a year older, he's now at the part of his career, he's probably getting 8 to 10% worse each year. But I don't think adding Carmelo hurts them. I actually think it is, if used properly, a good addition for them. I think everyone is over-exaggerating the loss of Mbah a Moute.
Okay, but define for me if used properly. What does that mean?
I think Carmelo Anthony, if you want to run the offense for him at the end of first and third quarters, run the offense through him, I think Carmelo Anthony as a floor spacer, because he's still one of the best catch-and-shoot three-point shooters in the league, I think those things work, similarly to how they have used Ryan Anderson throughout the regular season the past few years. Now, does Carmelo Anthony move the needle in the postseason? I mean, he did for the Thunder last year in a hugely negative way. He was terrible in their brief playoff run. We'll see what he is by the time the Rockets get to the playoffs this year. But, I mean, the guy that the big loss for them is Ariza. And Phoenix overpaid for Ariza. He's not worth $15 million a year to the Rockets. They let him go. But Trevor Ariza also was 0 for 12 in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals.
But you can't take away. This is what I don't like about the NBA. However a guy performs in the playoffs or like at that little final stage, like we make that the resume for the season. But the reason why that they were a better team was because of Ariza. You know, the Cameron Prince, the totality of them, the minutes that they played. The reason why they went from the bottom half of the NBA in defense was because of these guys, right?
I would actually disagree with that. I think they were important pieces, but I would say the reason they made the defensive jump were these three things more than that. The evolution of Clint Capella, the addition of P.J. Tucker, and the addition of Chris Paul. I think those were their three biggest defensive pieces.
Well, what about the 30 games that Chris Paul missed?
Sure,
but so you don't. No. This is the thing. Chris Paul missed 30 games. You don't go from the bottom 6 team in defense to a top 10 team without all those other minutes. So we can't exclude that part. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And
he missed 30 games. If he had played 80 games, I would be like, yeah, Chris Paul was the reason. P.J. Tucker, yes, but it's all those pieces. Melo doesn't fit. Melo. He's just not my favorite player. So I have to be careful in trying to criticize the move. There's no way that Houston as a basketball team think they're better today than they were.
Well, what do they get out of Carmelo Anthony? How does he contribute to the team? How do they get better with him on it?
I don't know how they get better. I don't think they get demonstrably better. Look, this is, and I wrote about this last night, this is kind of a seminal moment for Carmelo Anthony. Maybe not this season, but at the end of the season, the next couple of years. You talk about used properly. The most proper way to use a 34-year-old Carmelo Anthony right now is as a sixth man. Bring him off the bench, let him cook some of those second-unit type defenders, and get him off the floor in the fourth quarter, which he will be once again. You are not going to see Carmelo Anthony on the floor in the fourth quarter of big games in Houston, just like you didn't see him on the floor in the fourth quarter in big games in Oklahoma City. You saw Jeremy Grant playing a lot of fourth quarter minutes for the Thunder last season. If used in that way, he can be effective. But if you're talking about sticking him out there as the power forward in the fourth quarter of games with Chris Paul and with James Harden, how do you stop teams in that regard? He is still a below-average defender, and this doesn't even take into account the entirely separate conversation of the hilariousness of he and Mike D'Antoni reuniting. He was the reason that Mike D'Antoni quit New York. Not a reason, the reason that he quit New York. Those two together, it boggles my mind.
Okay, but Mike D'Antoni is signing off on this.
Yes, and Mike D'Antoni's a different coach right now.
Well, what else is available?
Well, listen, I don't think the Rockets are not in a position where they feel like if we don't add Melo, we're screwed. They are doing it because they think it's an added benefit. And when you're saying he can't be on the court in the fourth quarter, listen, Gerald Green was playing fourth quarter minutes for this team. Like, you don't think there is, unless they want to go super small and have CP3, Harden, and Gordon out there, there is a lineup that exists that's CP3, Harden, Melo, PJ Tucker, and Capella. That will be the starting lineup. That will be some games' finishing lineup. Now, if you want to go smaller and sub Eric Gordon out, but Gordon's not a great defender. We also have to recognize that how does this team match up against Golden State? Not great. How does any team match up against Golden State? Not great. There's 28 other teams in the league. They got to get back to the Western Conference Finals first. Like, you don't have to have 5+ defenders on the court at all times against any team except Golden State, right? Like,
but isn't that just the bar? Like, that's the bar. Like, you know, they're a 65-win team that went to the conference finals last year.
They were the second best
Forget
team
everybody
in the NBA.
else. Like, that's who you need to be building a team to compete against. And you're not going to convince me that Carmelo Anthony on this team makes them even close to as competitive against Golden State as they were last year.
Yeah, I don't think they're definitely, if they were one step away from Golden State, they're definitely several steps. You know, I believe that a couple teams in the East have the potential to be as good as Houston. Like, I don't believe Houston believes that they're as good as they were or have the same potential. Like, last year, they thought their ceiling was world championship. It would be hard for me to believe that everyone in their building believes that now.
Okay, well, I mean, if they don't believe that, they're lying.
They believe. Like, in the building, like, in the
building.
building.
But maybe they're kidding themselves.
No problem.
Of course. It's just, you know, I wish. You know, Carmelo Anthony at that exit interview last year with Oklahoma City, when he kind of dismissed the idea of being a sixth man, that was frustrating to me because I think he can be an incredibly effective sixth man on a winning team, a championship team for the next 3 years.
That's what I was going to. Is this going to be a whatever it takes with Carmelo Anthony? Is he willing to do whatever it takes to convince people last year maybe was an outlier year and that, yes, he's on the decline, but it was not nearly as bad as what happened in the playoffs?
I don't see him having that attitude. It's really hard, and you could speak to this as a player, but it's really hard, I've found, from NBA players to go from being superstars to role players.
Yep.
For their entire professional careers or their entire lives, they've been the best players on the court when they've been out there. To transition to a reserve role, you don't see a lot of guys do it. It's what drove Allen Iverson out of the league, quite frankly.
Real quick, I think the Melo, I agree with you that ideally he would be a sixth man. The reason I'm putting him in the starting lineup is just because you're not going to start Ryan Anderson. I don't think you're going to start Gerald Green. Like, the Rockets have really good guard depth.
All their choices are bad.
Ryan Anderson might be a better fit for what they do. He's a better three-point shooter.
They both space the floor about equally.
You think Carmelo Anthony's going to be happy just kind of standing in the corner, spacing the floor?
Again,
Nick thinks this is a galvanizing moment. He thinks this is a moment of humility.
I do. I think that.
But we have no signs to be able to verify that. But he just thinks...
If you're right, it could work better than I think.
Well, when you say we have no signs of being able to verify that, of course, because the season hasn't started yet, see. But what we do know is for some guys...
Who?
What do you mean? We've never heard of a professional athlete getting cut from a team and having that all of a sudden change their outlook?
A buyout. He's not getting cut, Nick. He's not getting cut.
Because you can't cut guys.
They told him to go home, and I'm going to give you a check.
See, you can't cut guys in the NBA. A buyout is getting cut. That when he has a moment where...
I know what getting cut is.
Right, of course.
I know what really getting cut is.
Of course. And what you went through is obviously different. That's not what I'm comparing it to. But we have seen guys... When I say it's a galvanizing moment...
Yeah, just tell me the guys that did. Make a list of the guys that you have seen. Okay, this guy got bought out of his contract, and this was a galvanizing moment for him. All right? I'm not giving credit to Melo for something that I can't identify. Who did that? You tell me a great guy made a bunch of money, and then at that moment he said, you know something? I'm getting ready to buy into this concept of being a backup because that moment right there humbled me. I don't see that, and I don't see Melo doing that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolf. So long, everybody.